So you want to know the ins and outs of managing your money. Well, lucky for you, you're just in time for another episode of Master Your Finances with certified financial planner professional Kurt Baker. Kurt and his panel of experts are here for you and will cover topics from a legal and personal standpoint. They'll discuss tax efficiency, liability, owning, managing, and saving your money, and more. Master Your Finances is underwritten in part by Certified Wealth Management and Investment and Rider University. Rider offers continuing studies programs for adults who need flexibility. Want to add new skills to your resume? Take a continuing studies course at Rider University. Now, let's learn how we can better change our habits with Kurt Baker.
Do you want to start your own business but don't know where to begin? Do you want to find a source that offers free mentoring services to assist you in starting your own business? Richard Kroger has over 30 years of banking experience as a commercial lender, business banker, and SBA lender, and has assisted people in funding their startups and early stage businesses. He also has 5+ years as a certified SCORE mentor, helping people start and grow their business, and providing advice and guidance to potential business owners. Today, he will help you feel more confident about starting your business. That's just awesome. And this is a great thing. I remember years and years and years ago when I was first starting my entrepreneur life, I remember going to SCORE, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So tell all the people a little bit about SCORE, just because that's cool. I want you to tell them what that is about, because I had a great experience. I got some really basic, like how to get started and things that people don't tell you unless you ask somebody.
No, well, why don't you? No, why
That's
don't
okay.
you run? No, I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding. Well, thank you for the intro, Kurt, and also thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you today. I appreciate it.
Pleasure.
I appreciate it very much. To answer your question, SCORE is a nationwide nonprofit volunteer organization based in Northern Virginia.
Right.
And our mission, in a nutshell, is to increase economic development and employment in our particular area. The organization has been in existence since I believe it's the late 50s or early 60s. I'm one of the members of the Bucks Eastern Montgomery County chapter. The chapter has been in existence for 35 years. We have approximately 80 members in our chapter. All of us have different skill sets, backgrounds, and experience. The main way that we accomplish the mission is through the free, objective, confidential, and usually ongoing mentoring service that we provide to people who are either in business and having some particular challenge, or maybe are thinking about starting a business, or have, in the case of one of the people I was talking to yesterday, an entrepreneurial itch that they want to scratch, and they're looking for guidance and advice. Pardon me. The chapter, as I said, we have a number of people in the chapter that have all different types of experience that can be helpful to people. So I'll go out on a limb a bit and just say that if I'm talking to a client that has a particular need and it's maybe not something that I can fill directly because of my background, I'm sure there's probably someone in the chapter who can.
Because these are mainly like retired executives, right? So this is the group. Is it different now? Is it different now?
Yeah, well, it's different now.
Okay, okay.
It started life, SCORE originally started life as the Service Corps of Retired Executives.
Right. That's what it was referred to when I went and saw them years ago.
Well, that's actually when I met SCORE mentors when I was working.
Okay.
When I was doing business development for the SBA products.
Okay.
And at that point, you're right, it was still Service Corps of Retired Executives.
Right.
Now, over a period of years, the last few years, and also as an attempt to become more inclusive, let's say.
Right.
We've just decided to shorten the name to SCORE.
Okay. Oh, so you don't go by that anymore. Okay.
Well,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, the mission is the same.
Right. Okay.
It's just a lot easier for people, and also it's a lot easier for people to understand just to say SCORE.
Okay. No, that's awesome. So, so how did you get in? So you've obviously been an executive. So you have some experience, and you're doing banking. So have you always give us a little bit of your background, and then we'll get into the banking aspect of what we're doing here. How'd you get involved in all this?
I I was going to night school at the Wharton School.
Okay.
And I was going to Wharton at night, and I was working for the state of Pennsylvania doing sales tax audits.
Okay.
And I graduated from Wharton, and I went into my manager, boss, I guess, depending on what the terminology might be.
Okay.
But because at that point I'd been there a little over 3 years, and I said to him, listen, I'm thinking about, asking you for a promotion.
Right.
Based on my previous work experience and my education and the period of time that I've been here doing sales tax audits.
Right.
And he said, Dick, the only way somebody in this office gets promoted is if someone leaves and if someone dies. And I was, back then, I was less than probably half my current age.
Okay.
And I said, this isn't going to work.
Have to wait for everybody to die off here.
Yeah, really.
It can take a while.
I mean, you hate to be morbid, but, still.
Right.
But I said, because I was in my early 30s, I just got married, and I said, oh, man, I don't think this is going to work out. So I put some resumes out, and I was hired by a bank. Of course, well, the bank doesn't. The name doesn't exist anymore. Of course,
not surprising.
Yeah, really. Over in South Jersey, it used to be called Heritage Bank.
Okay.
And I was hired as to come in and start doing audits in their there's a form of commercial lending called asset-based lending, where you're lending on a formula basis against a company's receivables and inventory. Mm-hmm. And so they hired me to come in and work as an auditor to get started. And that was really how my banking career started. I mean, I never worked in a branch.
Right.
But I started as I came in as an auditor and progressed up forward from there.
Okay, so it's good you knew the back end first, so to speak, almost like you knew the audit side of things, and then you went... Right. Yeah,
it taught me a lot that was helpful. It's one of those things that you do. You have a previous life experience of whatever it might be.
Yep.
And 20, 25, maybe even 30 years later, all of a sudden something that you're doing something different, but you're falling back a little bit on the previous experience or the things that you've learned from before. And it's like, oh yeah, well, yeah, now this is helpful to me now.
Okay.
So, and as I progressed through the banking world, once again with a couple of banks that the names aren't there anymore, but as I said, so what else? So anyhow.
Okay. So now you're in banking. So give us a little bit of like where the banking industry has changed a little bit over time. So you want to give us a little bit of that and like kind of where we are now as far as what you're seeing out there?
How much time do we have?
Well, yeah, you don't you have to keep it under an hour. So
no, okay, fine. Yeah, it's like night and day.
Right.
I mean, it's like night and day. I mean, for example, who goes into a bank branch anymore? I mean, way back when, in between working in banking, I worked for a company, a privately owned commercial finance company.
Okay.
And my role there was business development. And this is where my degree, my BA from Wharton is a combination of accounting and marketing. It was two majors.
Okay.
And so my role was business development, and and my territory in New Jersey was from Trenton and north to the New York border. So I did thousands of cold calls into banks, talking to bank people, looking for leads, looking for business, and so on. That role or that MO, I guess, anymore is really kind of passé at this point.
Right.
I mean, it's just not. Well, now that things have loosened up because of the virus, maybe there are still BDOs out there trying to do that, but certainly not the way that I did it.
Okay. So you got into the bank. So that's how it was then. So what do you see now? How does most of this operate now? So how do people get started? And I mean, getting started these days might be a little bit different than getting started.
Oh, it's completely different.
Right.
I mean, there's still, pardon me, there's still it's not the stigma, but the difficulty in finding financing for what you want to do, because credit standards have tightened significantly. From what I'm hearing from the banking people that I talk to, because I still have a number of contacts that I have from my working life who reach out to me from time to time because they know what I'm doing in SCORE.
Right.
And they'll say, listen, Dick, I've got somebody that I'm talking to, and they want to start a business, and I know that they need a business plan. But that's not what the bank is not paying me to help them with their business plan, either to prepare it or review it. So, this is now something that, this is part of the role that we fill.
Okay.
In trying to help
so SCORE helps with the business plan as well?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah,
good.
we do.
Yeah,
yes, we
good.
do. I'll help people. We're not going to, one thing I emphasize to the clients that I talk to is that I'm not going to do the work for you.
Right.
That's not my role. My role is to help you and to advise you and things like that about what's in the plan. If it looks like it's detailed enough, if it looks like it's covered. Most of the high points that I think you're going to need to submit to someone, a credit underwriter, for example, to be approved for a loan. But it's still difficult right now for people to get financing. And the other thing, too, is there are commercial lenders. There's been a downsizing of commercial loan people. So now you not only, have banks that are doing commercial lending, you also have credit unions that are doing business banking, they call it. Let me put it that.
Okay. Well, that sounds good. We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to Master Your Finances.
This is Master Your Finances with Kurt Baker, certified financial planner professional. Learn about tax efficiency, liability, owning, managing, and saving your money, and more from Kurt and his experienced panel of guests. Master Your Finances is underwritten in part by Certified Wealth Management and Investment and Rider University. Rider University offers flexible education for adult learners. For more information, it's rider.edu/nextstep.
Welcome back. You're listening to Master Your Finance here with Richard Kroger, and he's a certified SCORE mentor, and we're going to talk a little bit about, I talk about a little bit about your background, but SCORE is really important, so we just call it SCORE now. And basically, guys, you're helping out. And so how does somebody, let's say I'm somebody, maybe I'm in corporate America, or I'm just sitting at home, and I'm thinking, I'm going to go start a business, right? And as we know, the majority of businesses fail within the first 12 months. So the planning aspect is usually where most of these go wrong, and they don't really think about all these steps. And this is where an entity like SCORE can help significantly to help. So I'm getting ready. I'm thinking about starting a business. How would SCORE kind of fit into that to kind of help walk me through this process a little bit better?
Okay. Yeah. No. Thank you. Yeah. We have leads that come to us from all different areas. From the webinars, the weekly webinar that we do at 11:30 every Tuesday, which is a source of leads for us. It's a business-related webinar that we do on all different topics. You'll even find a couple of mine in there, and if you do find them and you're having trouble sleeping, you can listen to that, and that'll maybe take care of that.
Okay.
But no, kidding aside. People find us through professional contacts, through talking to their neighbors, from all different types of sources. And one of the first things I ask someone when I get an assignment, a client assignment, is, what do you want to do? What's the genesis to this? Where did this come from? Where did this idea come from? How did it start? And so on. And that's part of what I call, let's say, the initial screening of a client when I'm talking to them. What do you want to do? Is this going to be something with a service? Is it going to be a particular product? Is it a case maybe where you have, and I have this exact situation right now with someone. He wants to buy. He works as an automobile mechanic, and he has an opportunity to buy a body shop and repair facility where the owner wants to retire.
Okay.
And so I'm working with him, helping with him decide which way he wants to go in terms of how much money, the money that he has available, how much of his own resources does he have to put into the deal. Excuse me. If we get to the point where he needs to borrow money, I'm going to more than likely help him put forth his business plan. It really runs the gamut, Kurt, as far as the different types of, let's say, opportunities that I talk to people about.
Right. So let's take our auto mechanic for a minute. So if I'm an auto mechanic, right now I'm an employee, right? Mm-hmm. So we have to walk through like how they're going to, let's say they need financing. Of course, there's different components that go into making sure they qualify for the financing. So you want to walk through a little bit of the key factors the bank is going to look at.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people think, hey, I'm working for this person, but I'd like to do it on my own, but I've never been a business owner. I don't really have any commercial lines of credit. I don't have any of this stuff.
I don't have any background, or
Nothing.
I don't have any contacts.
I just know how to fix stuff.
Well,
I mean, kind of, right?
Well, that sounds like a typical score client. I mean,
well, that's what I mean. But they don't realize there are steps. I guess I want to make sure they know that.
No, yeah, and I don't mean to make light of it, and I shouldn't. But I mean, it is a usual score client.
Right. Okay.
Usually, when I'm talking to the person either on the phone or virtually, depending on how we set up the initial call.
Right.
It's after we get past what do you want to do. If I think that they're going to need to borrow money, first question I ask them: Have you gotten a credit report for yourself recently? Do you know what your personal credit score is? Because I know that when they go to a bank or a lender to apply for a loan, on the application, that's the first piece of information that they're going to be asked for. And it's also, and I tell people it's going to be the first hurdle that you're going to have to get past in terms of applying for a loan. And I say that, I mean, obviously because of my background. And when there are situations that come up in the chapter where one of the other members who doesn't have, let's say, my background, will call me and say, Dick, listen, I'm talking to so-and-so, and I think they're going to need help with funding. Would you join me as a co-mentor in this session?
Right.
Fine. Okay, that's no problem. But I found that some of my associates aren't comfortable raising that credit score. To me, based on my background, Kurt, I mean, to me, it's second nature.
That's like one of the first questions anyone asks.
But once again, I mean, not everybody has my background, and not everybody is comfortable, even though we tell clients what you tell us is confidential.
Right.
It's not everybody's comfortable with doing that, and I'll take the answer depending on the answer that I get. I'll take people at their word until I learn or find out different. But if someone tells me, for example, in this particular market, that their personal credit score is, let's say, at least above 700,
right,
then I know they probably, more than all things being equal, they more than likely would be able to be approved for a loan and at a reasonable interest rate.
Okay.
But unfortunately, I've had too many conversations with people who tell me that their credit score is 650 or below.
Right.
And I've told them, you need to seriously think about what you want to do, number one. And number two, I've suggested, rather than trying to apply for a loan, that they maybe look for other sources if they are going to go forward with this, whether it's money from parents or loans, gifts money, for example, or other sources of funds. But the first thing that I'll tell people usually in that case is there's an organization over in Richboro, Pennsylvania, which is close to where we live. It's called the Credit Counseling Center. And it's another nonprofit organization, and their role is to help people improve their credit.
Right.
Get them on a payment plan, get them on a budget, whatever
Right.
the case might be. But let's kind of walk away from that for a minute, from the credit situation. Once I get past there, the next question is, well, okay, let's say your credit score is 750, okay, fine.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you think that you're going to need to borrow money or to get this project started. How much money do you have of your own?
Right.
Oh,
Right.
I have to put my own, because most banks that I know in this market aren't willing to do 100% financing.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have to come up with some money of your own resources to put into this deal as a capital contribution.
Yeah, right.
Which sometimes, if the personal credit isn't a deal killer,
Right.
the lack of funds as a capital contribution is a deal killer.
Right, which can obviously make it a challenge. So
It makes it even more of a challenge.
Right.
It makes it even more of a challenge. I mean, it's the old, whatever kind of buzzword you want to use, capital contribution, down payment, skin in the game. I mean, whatever it might be, banks don't want to take all the risk in a deal. Let me put it that. I mean, I can't tell you the number of conversations that I had with people when I was doing SBA lending. And I would say to the people, the bank is willing to review your credit request, and they're willing to, let's say, take the payment risk.
Right.
That they'll lend you the money, and you're going to make the payments, and everybody's going to live happily ever after. They don't want all the risk, and they ask, and this is getting into another topic, but they ask the borrower to assume part of the risk in the deal, and that is the money that's coming into the deal as a capital contribution and also the interest rate risk.
Right. So nowadays, I mean, as you point out, the years of 08, 09, 100% finance are pretty much gone.
And unsecured lending is pretty much gone.
125% loans on your house. That kind of stuff has gone by the wayside.
Short answer is yes.
So yeah, no, I'm aware of that. So essentially now, what typically are people like infusing cash? If they're a new startup, I'm the mechanic, want to buy this shop from somebody. What typically should somebody anticipate having to contribute to kind of a deal? I mean, just if they're thinking about it, like before they even start, like, hey, look, I should save up a little money or have access to it from, friends and family happen a lot in these cases, I know.
Well, yeah, you're right, and that has to be documented. But I would look for at least a 20 to 25% capital contribution coming into the deal, because if you have those kinds of funds available that you've been saving, to set aside for this venture, fine. And the other thing too, of course, is the more money that you can put into a deal, the less you have to borrow. Right. And right now, we're in a rising interest rate environment, so that affects your cash flow and your debt repayment ability.
Right. So yeah, obviously, the less leverage you have, the easier it is to cash flow the rest of your business, because now you don't have debt service as high of a debt service cost. Right.
That's right. Yeah.
So that would help you out a lot. So assuming I get over the credit score
and the capital
barrier, and then the capital, we're going to take a quick break. But once we get over these two hurdles, right after the break, we're going to talk about now what's the next step.
Where do we go from here?
Absolutely. We're going to take another quick break. You're listening to Master Your Finances.
This is Master Your Finances with Kurt Baker, Certified Financial Planner Professional. Learn about tax efficiency, liability, owning, managing, and saving your money, and more from Kurt and his experienced panel of guests. Master Your Finances is underwritten in part by Certified Wealth Management and Investment and Rider University. Rider University offers flexible education for adult learners. For more information, it's rider.edu/nextstep.
Welcome back. You're listening to Master Your Finances. I'm here with Richard Kroger, and we've been talking about how to get yourself ready. Let's say in our last segment, we had the mechanic that was interested in buying the shop. So if this person comes in, first question, Richard's going to ask, well, what's your credit score? Just want to make sure it's high enough where if you do need to borrow money, in today's market, it's like a 700 plus is kind of what's recommended as far as your personal score goes, because typically these loans have a personal guarantee, so they want your name is on the line too, not just the business. And then the next step is, do you have enough money to put into the transaction? And typically you're going to want to have somewhere in that 20 to 25% amount, at least for the loan part of it. But then we get into the next part, which is really going to dig deeper, like how much you really want to have, because the business plan may dictate maybe even a little bit more, because once you start up, you've got a ramp up time frame. As soon as you open the door, unless you're open AI selling Chat GPT, you're not going to necessarily get 100 million subscribers the first couple of weeks, right?
No,
so most of
not.
us, it takes a little longer to get rolling, right?
Yeah.
Even though they had a few billion to start with, but
Yes.
it's a different story.
Well, maybe last week they had a few billion.
Well, now they had money put in first to develop
okay.
the technology, but but for most businesses, you have to account for getting the doors open, getting it running. Even if it's an existing business, you still got to go in and take it over. And there's going to be things that cost you. So the business plan is really critical. That's something where your mechanic's going to say, "A what?" I've never done I don't know what you're talking about. How do we do this? And that's not their expertise, I should say, right?
No, it's not. It's not like pulling wrenches. No.
Right. It's a little different.
Yeah, and actually, he did send me. It's something he'd been thinking about doing for a while, and he did like a real rough.
That's good.
I'm
impressed. That's
well,
very
you're
impressive.
right.
That's impressive, actually.
Well, you're right. He sent it to me, and it wasn't, anywhere near comprehensive enough, but that's
Right.
a whole other story.
Right.
But what I told him is, and this goes back to my SBA lending days, because I've read more business plans than I'd like to think about.
Okay.
And once again, I'm usually it starts with me. I'm the first one usually, excuse me, that reads them.
Right.
But I told him, I said, to me, a business plan has 5 components.
Okay.
Now, granted, there certainly can be more, but I said, to me, the 5 points that I'm looking for. First of all, the first page, maybe a paragraph or 2, an executive summary.
Mm-hmm.
Give me or give the reader, whoever is going to be reading the plan, a real quick synopsis of what you want to do. Background, what the name of the business is going to be, what you think you're going to do, excuse me, the address, maybe if you're going to borrow money, how much money you think you're going to need, what you're going to use the money for. Those kind of real short summary, as I said, and maybe a paragraph or 2. Mm-hmm. Second section is the narrative, where you're taking what's in the executive summary and you're running with it, going into much more detail about the project, about what the ownership structure is going to be, the ownership percentages, the information as far as marketing, geographic coverage, what the product or the service is that you're going to sell. Much more detail about what this particular opportunity is going to be. The third part is where everybody looks at me and everybody says to me, "Oh, Dick, I don't want to." The financial projections is, do I have to do them? I said, well, it's funny,
Right.
Do you
want to make money?
But yeah, really. Well, the other thing too, banks are kind of funny about wanting to lend money and getting repaid.
Yeah, they like that. They like the checks coming back too,
well,
right?
Exactly. And I said to them, you need to, first of all, don't go out longer than 3 years, number
Right.
one. And you need to think about what your pricing is going to be for the product or service you're going to sell. And also list all of what you can think of as far as relevant expenses for the particular project. Mm-hmm. I've told people, don't do 3 columns of numbers, year 1, year 2, and year 3, because what I've found is a lot. And my reference point, Kurt, is, let's say, the Metro Philadelphia market.
Right.
A lot of credit underwriters are looking for the people in the financial projections to break down the years into first year, say, month-to-month results, and maybe even the second year, month-to-month.
Right.
Third year, do it on a quarterly basis. So if people have access to Excel or Excel worksheets, those can be really helpful to people to do that, or another template that you can find, or even I've suggested to people that they reach out to their accountants and ask them if they do prepare business plans or projected financial results, if they have that template available that they can share with their client.
Okay.
So those are the first three. The next point, number 4, is the assumptions. I tell people, you've done the projections, but someone who's looking at them wants to know where the numbers are coming, where the numbers came from.
Right.
So that's where you list in the assumptions what you think you're going to price your product for, how your product or your service, how you're going to price it, and give the details as to where the numbers came from as far as revenue. If you're going to be leasing space and you have an idea of what your monthly rent's going to be, well, then plug that in on a monthly basis once you come down to the expenses. If you're going to be hiring people as employees, use some kind of estimate as far as payroll expense is concerned. And once again, I would suggest going back to their accountant or maybe even an experienced bookkeeper that might be able to help them with what the assumptions are as far as the financial results. And the last section to me is miscellaneous. And one document that I always ask people to include in their plan or in the miscellaneous section is a copy of their resume. You know, because the person who's going to be reading the plan would like to see that there is some kind of past experience, let's say, that's going to dovetail back to what they want to do. I've seen plans where people have included copies of college degrees. They've included copies of articles that they've written. Any kind of personal recognition, like letters from professors at universities or personal references. If it's a food-related business, I've suggested that people do put a sample menu in as the miscellaneous section to give the person, once again, some backup as far as where the numbers come from. If they're going to be leasing space and you have, let's say, an outline or a layout of how the space is going to be, you know, you can certainly include something like that, as long as it's not one of those humongous blueprints. But anyway,
Right.
But no, I tell people anything or any document, let's say, that you have that can further support what it is that you want to do, I suggest you include it in the miscellaneous section.
Okay. That sounds pretty comprehensive. So you walk through. So these are the things you tend to review, right? So what are some areas where they typicly have a hard time? You said the financial projections.
The projections are, the projections can be a night. Well,
right.
I'm sorry.
So is that where you get into, I mean, let's take your example. I'm going to open up, I don't know, I'm going to sell cookies or something, right?
Right.
Now, I'm probably not the only one selling cookies out there. I mean,
No.
You know, the grocery store sells them. There's bake shops that sell them. And
Right.
So how do does that play into the viability of the business? So how do I come up and say, hey, I think my cookies are going to be so great that everybody else is going to go out of business. I'm the only one left. I mean, because the competition, I guess what I'm saying. So you give, right? So any business is going to have competitions. You have to address, how did you determine that you're actually going to have some kind of success in here?
Well, that should be reflected back in the narrative,
right?
Describing, let's say, the product or what do you do that's different from what everybody else does,
right?
And because that's one of the things that should be covered in the narrative, and also too, part of your due diligence. Let's say you're going to be starting, you know, don't look to sell your cookies for, I don't know, $5 a piece or something
unless
like that.
Starbucks.
When you do the projections, well, unless you're Starbucks, I can get away with it. Yeah,
right.
Fine, okay. But I mean, because I've seen in the projections, and this is one of the reasons why people have been asked to do monthly results, because year one, you're kind of here, and I realize this is on the radio and you can't see what I'm going to do, but year one is down here, and then year two looks like a hockey stick, you know, like all of a sudden, and it's
people
like,
find out about how great your cookies are and start buying them.
Yeah, really, and it's like, you know, stop and think once again, it's stop and think about what you're doing and how you're presenting information to someone who's going to be, let's say, hopefully approving your loan request.
Right. Yeah. So it's a bit of a process, right? So
and the other thing too, just briefly, I mean, I've had people, you know, they'll say, you know, here's a draft or here's my plan, you know, but the finished product can be different from the first time around. Let me put it that way.
Right. So I think that was part of what we're getting. So you write as much of this out as you can, and then you guys can kind of help and poke holes or make suggestions in what they put down, right? So maybe that's not, what do you mean by this, or what do you mean by that? Because you're going to help save them, so to speak, long term by fixing this. Because the plan doesn't work, it's not going to really.
Well, yes, and the other thing I tell people too, Kurt, is try to cover as much part as you can, or for me to help you with, because what you don't want is the underwriter or the person reviewing the plan to come back to you with 20 questions.
Right. So provide as much information as you can, and then you try to put it in a way that works and makes sense to everybody else. Well, that's fantastic advice. We're going to take another quick break. You're listening to Master Your Finances.
This is Master Your Finances with Kurt Baker, Certified Financial Planner Professional. Learn about tax efficiency, liability, owning, managing, and saving your money, and more from Kurt and his experienced panel of guests. Master Your Finances is underwritten in part by Certified Wealth Management and Investment and Rider University. Rider University offers flexible education for adult learners. For more information, it's rider.edu/nextstep.
Welcome back. You're listening to Master Your Finances, and I'm here with Richard Kroger, and we basically went through the basic steps, right? You're going to have a credit score, you got to have some assets potentially.
Some capital money to put in.
Somewhere. Hopefully yourself. If not, then you got to work it out with your friends and family, and start making some friends if you don't have it, or family.
Yes, something like that.
Start being nice to people, because you might need them to help at some point in life. They'll always be nice to people, frankly. Yeah. And then you get your business plan together, and you went through the different segments of that, which I think were really awesome, like the executive summary, the narrative section, the financial projections, and then make the assumptions, and then the miscellaneous section where you put in things like resume and other added things. Mm-hmm. So now we got all this together. So where do we go from here as far as like learning more about what I should do and how I should do it and how I get implemented here?
Well, one of the things that we try to help people with, and I tell people, if you're going to be applying for funding, I would always go to your own bank. Start there with the person, whatever the bank is, and get familiar with what their requirements are as far as how to be approved for a loan. Excuse me. What information they would need from you in terms of capital, as I said, capital contribution, more than likely a business plan. What kind of insight? If you're already an existing customer, so much the better, usually, as opposed to somebody who's just coming in off the street. Right. And I said, it pays to talk to maybe more than one person. Mm-hmm. Because you'll find different banks have different lending requirements.
Okay.
And the other thing too is the time frame.
Right.
How long is it going to take? Once, let's say hypothetically that you're approved for the loan, how long is it going to take to close and fund? Because sometimes that really drives the decision. Let's say about which bank that you might work with or for funding. Some banks are able to close loans quicker than others.
Okay.
I mean, as we talked during the break, if you're talking about an SBA loan, you'd look for a bank or a lender that's what's called a preferred lender, because they're the banks that have the most experience doing SBA loans. They can make their own credit decisions, and all things being equal, they can probably close the loans faster than a bank or a lender that's not a preferred lender.
All right. So ask to make sure they're a preferred lender, right? So there's enough of those out there where you should get a pretty good choice. Yeah,
most of the banks, Kurt, in this market, if you're not preferred, you're really behind the eight ball as far as, all the big banks, all the money center banks, the national banks, and a lot of the local community banks are preferred lenders. And that's one of the things you should ask the people, it's really a yes or no question. Are you a preferred SBA lender or not?
Okay. All right. That's great advice. I agree with you. So once you get this going, so then where we go from there, we got to implement it, right? So you implement the plan and.
Oh yeah. Well, that's well, that comes under the closing and funding process, if you would. And we'd like to get to the point where that happens and the business is up and operating.
Right.
And there are clients that I've worked with for 3 years or 4 years. Usually the sessions that I have with clients, depending on our schedules, are usually once every 3 to 4 weeks. So just because, let's say, the loan closes and the business starts, that doesn't mean that I go away. I mean, some people might want me to, but that's another story. But no, I mean, I tell people, look, I'm here. I'm not knock on wood, not planning on going anywhere. I mean, I'm here, as long as you need me, or as often as it might be. So the objective is to get the business up and going, but also stay in touch with them, because what the circumstances are now aren't necessarily what they're going to be 6 months from now or a year from now, because things can change. You would like to think they change in a positive way,
right?
But so we try as much as we can to keep in touch with the people going forward. Coming back to our mission,
right?
It's to help create the businesses that become successful, but also, excuse me, from a I guess you would call it maybe a selfish standpoint.
Right.
The chapter started a program back in, I think it was, let's say, the second half of 21, where we called it Success Stories.
Right.
And we went back and forth a little bit with how do you define success? And is it in terms of revenue generated? Is it in terms of length of time in business, or whatever it might be? And so we, came up with a couple of basic criterias, and we started going through our client list of the clients that we've worked with and where they are over that particular period of time. And the program has grown to the point where we have close to 40 success stories, and they're all, for the most part, they're all on our website, which is buckscounty.score.org. And I've used it, and also other mentors in the group have used it as a reference point if they're talking to a particular client where they know one of our success stories is similar to what this particular client is doing. So we've said, go to the website, look in the success story program for this particular company.
Oh, okay. Now, do these you're giving examples, but do these other entrepreneurs, do they assist any of these other people? Like if they want to talk to them, hey, look, you started that business, and I'm curious about how it went and what's going on.
Yes. We contact the person ahead of time and say, hey, listen, here I'm talking to so-and-so, and they want to start ABC company, and it's similar to what you did.
Right.
Would you be willing to talk to the person?
Yeah.
So we do something of an intro, but the usual process is first, we try to push people toward the website as much as we can, because we've got all kinds of information on the website, both in terms of the content for the Success Story program, and also we do a weekly webinar every Tuesday at 11:30. I mean, the joke is it's kind of webinar, webinar, whatever. It's on a different business-related topic, and the same concept applies there. Right. If I'm talking to someone and they're thinking about a particular need or something that they want to do that might have been covered in one of our webinars, we push them toward the webinars, because the webinars they're recorded, and if you register for the webinar, you get even if you're not able to attend, you get a copy of the presentation and you get a copy of the slides. So you can either view it at that particular time, or you can view it some other time when it's convenient if you're not able to be there on that Tuesday. And we've got, I think at last count we have more than 60 webinars in the library. And once again, that we push people to the website.
So what kind of topics do you, and that's the buckscounty.score.org, right?
buckscounty.score.org,
And
yes.
so what types of subjects, I mean, it's 60 topics. Can you name a couple
all,
areas?
All kinds of social media. I mean,
social media.
Social media, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's Google. We've got the one, coincidentally, the webinar today is, come on, Dick. How do you think? Are you sure that something? I'm paraphrasing here. Kind of what makes you think your idea is a good business or something like it's You
sound like Kevin O'Leary on
he's gonna,
Shark Tank now.
If he hears
that
this,
idea is horrible.
Yeah, if Don Geltz hears this, he's going to kill me. But no, it's the same thing. I mean, is what makes you think that your idea can be commoditized and turned into a business? But they're all business-related topics. Some of them are done by the mentors in the group.
Right.
And a lot of them are done by outside consultants and people who contacted us and asked for, can they do a weekly webinar? One of our most popular subjects, believe it or not, is we do the IRS at least once a year.
Okay.
And that webinar, we get, on a normal basis, we get anywhere from, let's say, 100 to 150 people who register. And we're consistently hitting approximately 40 to 50% attendance rate for the webinars.
That's great.
But they're all different business-related topics.
Okay. So people want to know about the IRS before the IRS finds out about them. Is that it?
Something like that.
Yeah, they want to know like best practices. I agree with that.
Yeah, really. What can I hide or whatever the case?
No. Don't be hiding things. That's a really bad idea.
No, I say that and I wait for a lightning bolt to hit me. Yeah. Okay, fine.
Absolutely. Well.
But anyway, as I said, I wanted to make sure and mention, the Success Story program has been picked up nationally, and also our webinar program.
So there's a lot of resources out there. So any final thoughts? This has been a great topic. I appreciate you coming on, because entrepreneurs that's kind of the engine that makes everything roll. We've got to start somewhere.
No, you're right. Well, the other thing too is I'd be remiss if I didn't plug our women's business event, which is coming up June 14th at Parks Casino. Okay. This is the first one that we've done since the virus.
Okay.
So, what's her name? Tracy Davidson from one of the news stations is going to be kind of the guest speaker and coordinator. And excuse me, pre-virus, we were getting over 100 people who were coming to the event. It runs from 9 to 3. If you register before April 30th, it's $25. Registering afterward, I believe it's $35. Registrations go through PayPal. Once again, all the information's on the website, buckscounty.score.org.
Excellent. Well, thanks for coming on, Richard. We really appreciate it. You've been listening to Master Your Finances. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
That was this week's episode of Master Your Finances with Kurt Baker, Certified Financial Planner Professional. Tune in every Sunday at 9 a.m. to expand your knowledge in building and managing your wealth. Missed an episode? No worries. You can subscribe to a free weekly episode of Master Your Finances to listen to on your favorite podcasting platform. Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, whatever. Master Your Finances is underwritten in part by Certified Wealth Management and Investment and Rider University. Rider offers continuing studies programs for adults who need flexibility. Want to add new skills to your resume? Take a continuing studies course at Rider University.